20 million. Après, ça se fait. Ça se fait. Comment?
Adena, Ghana for money, why say you give me book? Government give me books, say me will learn now, Pasco, you go come. Nothing come for the teen side. Nothing come for the teen side. The men so we prepare, give them to where they send it out, but nothing can see. Obi any my bossa. Obi any my bossa.
Fellow Ghanaians, this is a letter from the phone trees to the president. Nana, then what you do? You make we solve this book from cover to cover, cover to cover, pay to pay, English, already, everything.
Well, following this, a number of concerns that were raised. The Ghana Education Service decided to take an action, but the president did an intervention midway through the day of Sunday. So we had the president also giving us a statement. The director of communications at the presidency, Eugene Ahin, signed that statement, and we'll apprise you of what the statement is indicating. But we just want to have a bigger conversation. And he did indicate that the president has directed the Minister for Education, Matthew Opoku-Prempeh, to engage the Ghana Education Service to reconsider the decision to ban the 14 dismissed final year senior high school students. And we all do know that they're taking part in the WASSCE. Now, according to the president, though the act of indiscipline and then what they did was intolerable, which of course have led to the dismissal of these students. The president was of the view that the dismissal alone is enough punishment and will serve as a deterrent against future acts of indiscipline. And so he directed that the Minister of Education, needed to take the actions that were proper to pardon them. Well, it's almost like the president was appealing, but we all do know that's not an appeal, because before the statement by the presidency, we did have Child Rights International, one of the foremost leading child advocacy think tanks, also issuing a statement. It was signed by its executive director, Bright Appiah, and Mr. Appiah is joining us. Good morning to you, Mr. Appiah. But we all know that since the last conversation you had on this, a number of people seem to have joined the call as well. From that statement that he issued, perhaps that how far-reaching was it? Did you directly write to the ministry, the Ghana Education Service, or the presidency? Please unmute for us. Right, can you unmute for us? And but we're having on stream. Yeah, please,
can you hear me?
Yeah, please go ahead.
Yes, I'm saying that officially we did not write to the presidency or the minister, but all that we did is to issue a public statement, believing that some of this information will reach the quarters that it deserves. And then also, as part of the advocacy work, we also have to use the backdoor to do some engagement. So we do that of outcome that we are seeing. So and that's the most important thing. So we are okay with the decision so far. But there are other things that we need to interrogate further, especially based on the letter that emanated from the presidency and what it's seeking to do. So we're just hoping that everything will be fine.
In this sort of engagement, for actions such as this that the president has undertaken to be possible? How far-reaching should it be, or has it been?
Yeah, well, I have carefully gone through the letter, and I feel that all that the president did is to ask his appointee to have engagement with a statutory body to see how best they can deal with the matter. So from that point of view, I think that it is not like the president is seeking to usurp the powers of Ghana Education Service, but rather to make appeal to Ghana Education Service to reconsider the decision that they've taken. And the president also went further to say that at least from his point of view, he thinks that the dismissal is enough punishment to serve as a deterrent. So clearly there are issues that the president raised. But even on the issue of dismissal being used as a means of punishing them, I personally have some issues with it. But at the end of the day, what we seek to achieve has to do with the fact that the student will be given the opportunity to write the exams. Because from our point of view, we don't think that Ghana Education Service do have the power to deny children the right to write the exams. And the statement of the president and also that of the NAT and other organizations point to the fact that that decision was harsh. For that matter, they have to soften it, and they have listened. And I know Sunday a lot of discussions went on. So I'm hoping that this morning the student will have the opportunity to write their exams.
Okay, we have to bring into a conversation Peter Ante. He is Executive Director for the Institute for Education Studies. Now, Peter, from where we left off with Mr. Appiah, it means that there need to be some further engagement after the period of this pardon with either administrators, student body heads, parent association, and even teachers, right?
Yes. We need to restructure our punitive system in our senior high schools. We need to make clear what punishment would be meted out to students as and when they disobey the rules and regulations. I agree with Mr. Appiah, especially when he says that it looked as if GES wanted to stamp the authority on the issue, because you see, if you look at how this thing was happening, it started with one school, then 2, 3. By the last count, we had about 6 schools that have recorded some of these incidents here and there. It was escalating, and it was important on the part of the Ghana Education Service to stamp the authority and try to show that if you go beyond what you're supposed to do, you will be given the requisite punishment. Doing that, they might have done it or gone overboard, because technically, as the letter came out, it was clear that GES had no power to ban students from writing the exams. It was a contract between the West African Examination Council and the students, and therefore asking them not to, banning them from writing the exams was overboard. And we were thinking that this could have been easily handled by the Ministry of Education by consulting or in conjunction with the Ghana Education Service, and not the standard we've seen that it has gone.
Mr. Appiah, you have, with your organization, worked largely with students, especially at the second cycle level, even from the time they make entry or even prior entry until they complete. And even after completion, you still keep up or keep pace with them. If the ban was enforced, or the dismissal was also enforced, their inability to take part in the examinations, Mr. Appiah, what would have been the repercussions? Or how vastly would they have affected the students?
Well, it will mean that we have terminated the progress that they want to make by a year or 2. But with our experience, we realize that a student who has gone through some of these things, it takes them about 2 to 3 years to recover. Sometimes they not even go to sit for exams, but parents who are in the position to do that, helps them to rapidly recover from some of the effect that they have to go through when some of these things happen. So it's not an event that we need to just issue on the surface, but a lot of thinking and interrogation must go into it before we come to that conclusion. Again, if you look at the various levels of punishment, some of them, their punishments were not criminal in nature. It's purely a moral, issues of morals. So the determination of the kind of punishment that we have to give to them of it, and not provide that kind of reformation where they would understand that the act that they engage in is purely a wrongful act and is also criminal, then it means that we have not changed anything about their behavior. We've just asked them to go back to society and begin to live that kind of character again. But when it comes to children's rights, especially those who are below the age of 18 years.
Well, Peter, can you carry on also from where Ms. Appiah may have been lost?
Not for us to give them a punitive measures, activate, and then contribute meaningfully. So all the... Hello?
Please go ahead.
Yeah,
Bright.
hello?
Peter, wait. Bright, please go ahead. Just conclude.
Yes, so it do not serve them good, and society is also going to lose on this student. So the appropriate thing for us to do is to engage them.
Well, Peter, just carry on from where Ms. Appiah left off, because once there's going to be a truncation for 2-3 years, it means we leave them to the wider society. What risk also are there for them recovering?
Yes, that is the most dangerous part. Asking the students not to sit for any exams for 2 years, I think that is what the WASSCE law says. It's enough punishment to disorganize the student for the rest of his or her life, and that is why if we reconsider this decision, I think it's possible that this will be overturned and then they will go back and then write the exams. But talking about some of the issues being moral, it's true, but that should also send a signal to all of us in the education space that there is something we are getting fundamentally wrong with our education system. We have made a point that we all know in the education system, you develop the three domains of the individual. So you are talking about his hand, which is the psychomotor. You are talking about his mind, which is the cognitive, and you are talking about his heart, which is the affective. It seems that our education over the years, and more importantly, now that our basic education is likely to be redefined so that the child stays 14 years in school before he leaves, it is important that we make things, we develop our curriculum in such a way that the child's moral values, his understanding of society, his appreciation of the personality that fits well in society is given much premium. It is important that we pay particular attention to the affective domain of education as we continue with our curriculum reform, because if not for COVID, we would have we would be talking about reforming the GES. I think the process is still ongoing, and the SHS curriculum. And doing that, we have to be very careful and plan accordingly so that we'll be able to mold the student to fit into the society. We are not just interested in just developing or bringing out a student just because he's supposed to enjoy education. I don't think that is the essence of education in Ghana. So if we're able to ask ourselves the question, what kind of student do we want to see at the end of the 14 years of the child's education, then we will be able to know what values, what morals, what disciplinary issues, what personality that we would want to develop in the life of the students. An assertive person, somebody who understands the society, somebody who is responsible, respectful, somebody who appreciates, and somebody who will be able to convey his disagreement to the opponent without resorting to violence. These are things that we need to push forward even as child rights activists, in order that in the near future we don't have people who have gone through the education system but they have no moral reformation.
Now, as we try to wind up this conversation, there's an instrumental aspect of how technology has permeated the general well-being of our society. Ms. Appiah, are you still on stream? Okay. Ms. Appiah? Well, so we seem to have lost Ms. Appiah. We're working on his network. But the social media has played a critical role on the internet. I know in the code of the Education Service, students are not supposed to be having mobile phones, but also it's a learning tool, a learning kit. At the end of the day, what do we think the role has been in trying to get the first video viral, influencing other students in other schools, and how can we curb it? Peter.
We cannot rule out the role of technology in our education system, especially at this time that we saw that there was a challenge with continuing physical education, and therefore students will have to continue education online. We saw the need for technology in the system. I've listened to the GES, I think the board chair, saying that the use of mobile phone as an education tool has started in some of the schools, and that they are working around the clock to come out with the modalities of using these gadgets on campus. I must say that in as much as we would want to allow students to use these on campus, it must come with the requisite restrictions, and of course, we need to make sure that they do not abuse its use. And that is what we are seeing now. The mere fact that the students are on social media platforms and they have access to these gadgets, they want to record themselves and then put it out there for others to see. How do we deal with this issue? If we really want students to use these gadgets, then we will have to go to the extent that maybe we will have to bar them from we have to use technology to bar these students from accessing these social media platforms on campus, or maybe they would have to keep these mobile gadgets with the relevant authorities, and when the need comes for it to be used, they go for it and use it. I think these are ways that we can look through and then ensure that students would not be able to use the technology as we go ahead. It's a very tricky issue, I must say. It's something that we will have to think through critically, because the disadvantages sometimes might outweigh the advantages. And we cannot also say that in this time we are not going to allow our students to be technologically savvy. So how do we balance the two? I think the policy directive that the ministry and the Ghana Education Service will be working on should be looking at these things, possible restrictions on possible sites, and also maybe seizing these gadgets to a particular authority, and when they are needed for referencing, for research, for other things, students would be able to go and use it. We can also look at the way technology is used in other jurisdictions and adapt it to suit our peculiar situation.
But look, what should be the lessons for the other ones that are part of the pack? We're not only talking about this badge, but the next year we're going to have another badge, and there are even backlog of students in second year, third year, or the first year as well, or even those incoming.
Roland, you see, that is why I think the GES took that decision, because that decision was too harsh, but very deterrent enough for anybody who would want to go that path to think twice about it. Because you go through the education system and you will not be able to write your exams for the next 2 years, then it means that you have wasted your time. And that, to me and to us, we think that is the reason why GS went that particular path, although we are saying that it was a too harsh a decision. But we think that that's the reason why they went that path. And that should send a signal to those in SS2, SS1, that you are in the school to go through the education system, The government is spending a lot of money on you. It is your responsibility to be a very obedient and responsible student. Go through the system. When you have challenges with the system, you go through the appropriate means by which that have been laid down for it to be addressed. You don't resort to violence. You don't resort to using abusive languages and other things. You don't do that. You go through the channels of communication that have been laid down in the school for it to be picked forward by the authorities. But if you don't do these things and you would want to go the other way, then you should be ready to face the requisite punishment that will be meted out to you. And I think that as a society, sometimes when these things happen, instead of us to quickly jump into the defense of the student, we need to reprimand the student. We need to let the student know that whatever they did was wrong. And then before that, after that, then we come and then ask for clemency. I think that is the way we should go. Sometimes I feel sad that as soon as the GES letter came out, people started bastardizing the Ghana Education Service and trying to say that what they are doing is A, B, C, and D. But I was thinking that it was a measure for them to stamp the authority on what it was developing in the schools so that students will not pick up this bad behavior. We should encourage our institutions to call people to book when they do wrong, but when it is excessive, we should say it with a little bit of carefulness.
Well, we know. Look, we need better sanity or a comprehensive sanity within the second cycle, if not the education sector. But it looks like the Ghana Health Service took a decision that we all thought was good. The overwhelming comprehension of what they've done is that they were really having control over the situation. But we know that on the other hand, we've had a number of events, either teachers being punished because they didn't take the right sort of administrative decisions, etc. Does that send the signal that maybe the administrators, the teachers, really don't have the control or are afraid to take the right sort of decisions at a point in time?
Roland, you know that there is a little challenge in the senior high schools, and we engage these teachers a lot. And one of the things we have come to learn is that the teachers now they apply this thing they call teach and leave. Teach and leave meaning that whatever happens within the school system, which has got nothing to do with the teacher's classroom instruction, or that will prevent him from undertaking his duty as a teacher in the school, the teacher does not want to be involved in. And that is simply because along the line, we saw some of the teachers going overboard with carrying out these punishments that are supposed to be meted out to the students. And because of that, Ghana Education Service and the requisite institutions came in and punished these teachers. Now, in the event of communicating to the general public and the students that teachers have a limit to which they can carry out these punishments, I think the communication went bad. And what the general public and the students picked was that teachers cannot do or cannot instill discipline in our students. Now, because of that, parents whose students have gone through certain kinds of punishment have come out to even sometimes condemn these teachers. The Ghana Education Service itself, sometimes when teachers have gone overboard, have come out to punish these teachers. And these have sought to reduce the mandate of the teacher in instilling discipline to the student. And that is why in most of these campuses, teachers will not want to talk about student issues when it comes to they going overboard or they showing signs of indiscipline. And that is why we are suggesting that we should, as a matter of urgency, look at our whole disciplinary issue or framework in our senior high schools, because it is important, and make it clear that the teacher still holds the key to ensure discipline in our schools. We should make it clear that the teachers still, we should make it very clear, and I have to repeat this point, that we should make it clear that the teacher is still mandated to instill discipline in the child, not only so not in a way that will physically harm the student or psychologically harm the student, but in a way that will reform the students in a positive light. I think that's a conversation that we need to have. And if you're able to do this well, I'm hoping that going forward we'll be able to get students that are well trained and fit into the society that we are living in. We should be careful, because these students in the next 10, 15 years, they are going to be the teachers, they are going to be the bankers, they are going to be the politicians. So if you are not able to discipline them at this stage and instill the kind of values we cherish as a country into them, then we are likely to see a different breed of future leaders coming up, which would derail the sources that we have chopped as a country. Of course, they will be teachers teaching our kids.
Okay, Peter.
What kind of teachers are we training?
Well, Peter Anti is Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies, helping us with the discussion. Early on, or just for a larger part, we had Bride Apia, Executive Director for the Child Rights International think tank or NGO.